Yeah, holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen. Bringing nothing but heat, leave you hanging like clothespins. He's a beast when he goes in, ice cold frozen. The first round draft pick, number one chosen. Drop bombs, explosion, self-promotion. And I keep shit moving like a flanker in motion.
Hey, welcome to another episode of After the Buzzer Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Lee Jones. I got a special guest today, my man, Leel, from the Leel Sports TV. What's happening, Leel?
What's going on, man? Looking forward to this show. Looking forward to talk my piece here, man. You know, good topics, man. I saw the topic listing, and I'm ready like Freddie. Okay,
All right,
guess what? I'm not coming in nobody's dreams. All right, we in reality. And I'm going to give you some reality facts, okay? And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, man. Look, Leel is in the New York metro area, so you know I had to get him on. The Knicks eliminated last night, so he's going to be the man to tell us why they got eliminated and what they need to do going forward. So it's going to be a great show. We're going to talk about that. I want to get his thoughts on the Pacers and the Thunder, who he thinks is going to win that game. You know, he's a New Yorker, so I have to get his thoughts on the George Pickens trade to the Cowboys so that he can tell us from a New York perspective what he thinks about that. Then we're going to jump into Mike Tomlin, one of his, I'll say his pet peeves. Mike Tomlin, is he betting his career on the acquisition of Aaron Rodgers? We're going to try to throw some college football in there as well. So we got a jam-packed show today, Leel. And first of all, I want you to tell my audience about your show so that they can start to follow you as well. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to just educate my audience about your show.
Yeah, definitely. You know, 99 Pod is short for It's Not 1999 Anymore podcast. That's the name of our podcast because indeed it's not 1999 anymore. Things change. You know, it's all about adaptation, evolving with the times. You know, it's just like everything else in the world, right? Things never last long, right? You always have the new iPhone that come out every single year. Life is about change. You got AI that's going to be taking over your job and your mama job, okay? But it's the same thing with sports. Sports does not stay the same. Things change. The game is more analytical now. Analytics, you know, that's the main thing. And so that's why we called the podcast It's Not 1999 Anymore, because it's not. And yeah, definitely check that out on our social media platforms. You can follow me individually at Leel TV on YouTube. We out here, we be talking facts, we be debating, and we do what we do, talk sports.
Absolutely. And I've been on his show several times. He has a great audience. We chop it up. So that's why I wanted to get my man on this show today. Leel, let's jump into it, man. Let's jump into it. We know the NBA finals are set. We know it's going to be the Thunders and the Pacers, but I want to take a step back first. What were your thoughts on Game 6, Pacers, Knicks? Why did you think the Knicks went wrong in that game? And then I want to jump into what, if anything, should the Knicks do going into next season to be able to take that step to possibly make an NBA final? So first, thoughts on the game last night, Leel?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, waking up, you know, this morning as a Knicks fan was definitely weird. I think when you go back to game 1, that night that we lost that lead, that 14-point lead with 2 minutes left to go in the game, I had to crawl out of bed for work. Okay, literally. You know, this one, it was like a weird feeling because I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. It was almost like walking with it's like, you know, the Roman times where you know you're about to get your head chopped off. Right, you're about to surrender, and you just walk with a level of pride, like you knew your time was coming, and you just go for your bruising, you know, with pride, and that's what it was. It was like, you know what, Mama, I know you're going to beat me today because I act up in school, but guess what? I'm letting you beat me because I'm walking to you with the belt, so it makes it feel different. You know, you're taking your ass whooping with pride, and that's how I felt last night because truth be told, the Pacers were a better team. Yep. They were more well balanced. They had more depth. They had the better coaching advantage. You know, Tom Thibodeau waited too long to start playing his guys. That's why you have an 82-game regular season schedule. So this way you can figure out the nooks and crannies. You could be able to experiment with your lineups. You're not supposed to do that in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Okay, you're supposed to do that in the regular season. Experiment with your lineup, see who could play. This way, when you do have to go to an ulterior lineup, you already know how it looks. And I thought Tom Thibodeau waited too long. I thought we lost some games that we could have won. As far as Game 6, I expected us to, play a little bit more consistency on defense because in Game 5 we swarm. Tyrese Halliburton, we swarm everybody. Our defense was intense. We was not allowing the Pacers to really get a good look off, but we reverted back to what we've been doing with this drop back coverage, allowing them to walk into some easy shots, wide open 3-point shots. So I always said that this game 6 was going to come down to defense and how we guarded these guys, and clearly they had a lot of open looks and the turnovers this whole entire series has killed us. And like I said, that's why I was able to wake up this morning, because I knew that the inevitable was us going home because of how we played and how inconsistent we was. So this way, I was able to take that beating with a level of pride.
Look, you're hearing it from a New Yorker talking about the Knicks. This is Real Leel from Real Leel TV. Leo, the turnovers were what got me, right? Turned the ball over way too much. And the one thing that I gleaned from this entire run for the Knicks, they need a point guard that can handle the basketball and get the team into their offense. Love Jalen Brunson. Love what he does. But two things that bother me about him: doesn't always get his teammates involved, right? And his ball handling, other than when he's trying to score, is suspect. And so even when McBride comes into the game, they're a little bit more up-tempo, but they really don't have a playmaker from the guard position to get the ball into the post, to drive and penetrate and make plays for them. And I think that hurt them because the turnovers were just self-inflicted turnovers the entire series. And I think that really, really hurt him. And then the other thing is, look, I just think he kept subbing Karl Anthony Towns out too much. I know Karl Anthony's defense, like he said, he was going under a little bit too much on the defense. And I think that makes Thibs mad, right? But Karl Anthony's offense and how the pressure that he puts on Indiana's defense was evident the entire series. And I thought that it was his rotations, to your point, were a little bit suspect in what he was trying to do. So those are my takes from it, to where I think going into next year, let's jump into that. Two things I want to ask you as Ray Blackwell comes, I'm going to get him in there. I think you need to replace Tom T because your bench was not used effective. That's a great point. And that's what I want to ask you, Leo. Is it time for the Knicks to say bye-bye to Thibs? You're a New Yorker. Talk to me.
I mean, look, man, that's why waking up this morning is weird. I want to go back to that weird feeling and why it's weird, right? Why am I not crying on this show? Tears not coming out my nose. Why am I so composed, okay, without snot coming out my nose, right? It's because I'm walking in this conundrum feeling, right? Like a lot of people will argue that we are ahead of schedule, right? Nobody thought we could have beaten Boston this year. Nobody predicted that. And we beat them in 6, right? And you have that level of understanding, like we wasn't supposed to get this far, and we did. So we over-exceeded expectation. But then you have the other side to the equation where you look around the East, you see that opportunity. You see that the 64-win Cavaliers team got bounced. You see that we defeated, the Celtics. You see that the Thunder, although they're a very special team, they're still young. You realize that this is a golden opportunity that does not grow on trees. So you're kind of balancing that. And then when you bring it back to Tom Thibodeau individually, it's the same conundrum. He brought us to the Eastern Conference Finals, something that hasn't been done in New York since 25 years ago. Okay, he transformed the organization. When he took the job, it was a dumpster fire, and I'm not a liar. It was a dumpster fire. Okay, like I literally, I'm not gonna lie, I almost retired as a Knicks fan. Obviously, I love my Knicks, but man, those are some awful days. And he came in there and he transformed it. So you got that, but then you also got, now going deeper to the bench, playing Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, 940 minutes in the regular season, knowing that is not sustainable long-term to have success long-term deep in the playoffs, knowing that okay, is Tom Thibodeau a championship head coach? Can you win a championship and the head coach, be Tom Thibodeau? That's the conundrum here. So when you ask me a question like, okay, what should the Knicks do with Tom Thibodeau? Should he be fired? Again, I don't even know how to answer that question.
I'm on.
Because
No,
I can see it
Leel,
from
I'm
both
not gonna let you
perspectives.
off the hook. I'm not gonna let. Should he be replaced? Look. Detroit is getting better. Detroit played the New York Knicks very well. Miami, there's talk about KD coming to Miami. Maybe Jack Levine going out to reshape the Heat. You know, there's also talk about KD going to Philly. Look, Thibodeau, great defensive coach, but to your point, play him way too many minutes, and I don't see the offense evolving under the Knicks. So I got to hold you to the fire. Should he be back next year or not?
I mean, hand to the fire, I think he should be back next year.
Okay.
And that's because maybe I'm going soft. As you get older, you get softer. That's why Manny Pacquiao, as he got older, he got knocked out more because he got soft. He wasn't a killer. Same thing with all these Mike Tyson. That's why he got knocked out, because he wasn't a killer no more. And I feel like that's where I'm at. I'm normally a competitor. I want us to make the Godfather decisions that need to be made for us to evolve and revolutionize. I understand it's going against my show name. It's not 1999 anymore. I believe that wholeheartedly. But maybe I'm just respecting the fact that every year we continue to define the odds. Again, this year compared to last year was a step up. Even though we lost to the same team back-to-back years, we still had a better season this year than last year, despite us, I thought, having a better team last year than this team. Because
I like the team. Yep. I like
our
the team
last year,
yep.
It fit Tom Thibodeau. That defensive-minded unit with Isaiah Hartenstein and Dante, it fit, Tom Thibodeau's motto and mindset and coaching. This one does not. I feel like we have a team. That's why I would look more at the roster changes more so than the coaching change, because I think in order for you to get the best Tom Thibodeau, you have to construct a team in his image. And right now, I think we have a lot of guys that could get targeted on. I mean, Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns cannot play on the same court together and have success. It's not going to happen. The Pacers were scoring at will when both of these guys were on the floor.
That's true.
That's true. Because you have Brunson, who's undersized. That's because you have Karl-Anthony Towns that does not have the lateral, movement, to really get in front of his guy. And then you got the drop back coverage that Thibs like to play, and that's not fitting Cat. Too much space.
Let me ask you this. Is it a case where, because we saw this when Doug Collins coached the Chicago Bulls, right? And Jordan was in his heyday and he was coming up, and we knew Michael Jordan was going to be Michael Jordan. But there was only so far that Doug Collins could take the Chicago Bulls. And the Chicago Bulls, even though they were a perennial playoff team, they continued with Collins up until a certain point. They fired him and brought in Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson with the triangle.
I'm saying, if it is the Knicks at that point, Leel, to where it's time to say, okay, Thibs, thank you. You've been great for the organization, but there's so far you can take us, and maybe we need a coach that is more in tune with offensively playing. And, not a lot of teams outside of the Thunder really play great defense anyway. It's more of an offensive league. And so that's where I am with Thibs, thinking maybe it's time that he's given you all that he can give you, and now it's time to move on from. I'll give you the last word real quick.
I mean, look, man, I thought I was on a show, but now it feels like I'm in a therapy session. I mean, you bring up some good points. You're talking me into, looking at things from a whole perspective. And look, man, I agree. I think if you feel that this offense needs to evolve more, that you need a coach that's going to trust his guys a little bit more, leave some of the stubbornness back in 1999. You look at the NBA right now, we have a lot of young coaches that are taking over the sport. We have guys like Joe Mazzulla, the three-point specialist. You got JB Bickerstaff out here doing what he's doing with the Pistons. Even though Kenny Atkinson is not a young coach, it's still his second head coaching gig. We saw what he did with the Cavaliers this year. I mean, you look all around, JJ Redick had a very good year with the Lakers this year. You look at all around the league, you get a lot of these young minds, and maybe it's better to go in that direction because the game is changing. It's more analytics now. It's more three-point shooting now. So maybe you do have to evolve with the times and thank Tom Thibodeau, give him a gift basket or something like that, and send him on his way and maybe get a coach that you feel could lead us to where we need to go, like Moses trying to lead the people to the promised land, which is the NBA Finals. Okay, can we get there, please? All right.
It's an offensive league, and that's other than the Thunder, who plays that level of defense. Everything else is offense. Let's go to the NBA Finals. Thunder versus Pacers. The Thunder are the prohibited favorites, right? A lot of people say just, hey, take the crown, get ready for the parade, and give it to the Thunder right now over the Pacers. What does Real Leel say?
Yeah, I want to congratulate the Thunder on winning the championship. It was a good season. Post KD, Harden era, they finally got it done. And look, first off, I would like to say, wow, this is the most unappealing finals I've seen in my lifetime. I'll give credit to both teams for being here, being a pair of teams that are non-luxury taxpayers. Okay, teams that drafted their empire organically, like the Thunder, or made some calculated trades like the Pacers. They got here. They deserve to be here. I'm not a hater. The Pacers, like I said, I thought the Knicks were a better team, but the Pacers were a good team. They beat us 2 years in a row. That's not by accident. They deserve to be here. The Thunder will win the series, and the reason why they're going to win is because you have the Pacers, right? And look, I do think guard play is going to be very interesting. I do think both teams got depth, and they do match up well when you really think about just the depth coaching and the guard play. But when you look at Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, you got Alex Caruso, who literally put Anthony Edwards in timeout in the last series. I think he could be able to, tame Tyrese Halliburton, who, at times could go off on scoring surges like he did in game 4 against the Knicks, scoring 32 points. But then there's times where he gets guys involved. I just think the Thunder have too much of defenders that can really you could throw at the Pacers and stunt them offensively, along with Shea just being that silent killer that he is, not being able to stop him at all from the mid-range, and now he's shooting three-pointers a little bit as well. I like what I've seen from Chet Holmgren in these playoffs, especially with his floor spacing. You still got Lou Dort. Jalen Williams, I think, has come into his own as a number 2. So this team is clicking and firing on all cylinders, and I do think that's going to result in them winning the championship. I like them in 5 games. I thought about going 6 to give the Pacers a little bit more respect, but if I'm being legitimate here, I think you just booked the finals for the Thunder. I think they're going to win it.
Yeah, the problem I have with the Pacers in this series, Lil, is defensively. The Knicks were pretty much able to score at will against the Pacers. Very little resistance, really. Brunson got where he wanted to, except for the last game. Last game, they did a great job on Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, but they got killed on the boards. They got destroyed on the boards. Indiana did. That's not a good recipe when you're playing against OKC, who crashes the boards. Hardenstein, Chet Holmgren, SGA, they rebound the ball very well. So that's going to be tough for Indiana to overcome. The one puncher's chance I give them is Indiana is a streaky team. They score in bunches. And the fact that OKC, whereas they are a great defensive team, they're not a great offensive team. They're really not. They rely on SGA doing this thing, and they're streaky as well. So I think Indiana can win a couple of games in this series. I like OKC, but I like them in 6. I'll give them that extra game. I think Indiana will play. I think it'll be an ebb and flow series, but Indiana's going to have to tighten up their defense because they are not a team that gets a lot of defensive stops in a row, and they're going to need to do that against OKC. So I think it'll go 6 games, but I do like the Thunder to win. It would shock me if Indiana took it to 7, and it wouldn't surprise me if OKC won it in 5 either.
Yeah, and you look at the series. I mean, the Knicks we are more of an isolation team. We don't share the ball well. It's a lot of dribbling. Even when Brunson doesn't have the ball, it's still dribbling. Even with Mikal, find your shot. A lot of dribbling, man. The Pacers are not going to obviously, be that type of team. They share the ball well. The Thunder share the ball better as well. They unselfish. So I do think that it's stylistically it should be a fun series as far as scoring the basketball. But I do think when you talk about key defensive stops, you got to favor the Thunder there because they have defenders on the wings. They can dominate the boards. They can, rebound. They should be able to win the rebounding department. Look, it may not be the most X's and O's type of take here, but rebounding matters. And if you can dominate the rebounding category, I favor you to win the series off of that alone.
Yeah. It's a clash of two teams that sort of play differently. Indiana's going to shoot those threes. They're going to be long rebounds. They don't get up into you the way I would like it. I don't. Neesmith and Nimhart, they are good defenders. They're good on-ball defenders, so they're going to throw a lot of people at SGA, but I just don't see it. I see that OKC puts the clamps on them, and like I said, 5 or 6 games. Let's move to our next topic. I'm going to skip around a little bit. Look, you're an NFC East guy. Well, you like the Jets, and you support
I'm not really a Jets fan. I mean, that's not true, brother.
Okay. You have let me rephrase that. You have the pulse of the Jets and the Giants. I'll put it that way.
Being from New York,
NFC East, we just saw a big trade. George Pickens going from Pittsburgh to the Dallas Cowboys. Huge trade for the Cowboys. It gives them a number 2 receiver, really a 1A receiver. To go along with a great tight end, Jake Ferguson, Dak Prescott back 100%. Does the addition of Pickens make the Cowboys a Super Bowl contender? The floor is yours.
I mean, look, I think looking at it from a football perspective, there's a lot of ways you could look at it. Locker room, on the field. I think when you start from the locker room, that's where things could be a little bit dicey. Because we all know that George Pickens is a talented football player. He can win on the deep ball, can make very athletic, acrobatic catches. He's always had questionable character issues, though, since his days in Georgia. And that was exposed. I think what George Pickens' situation exposed is a flaw in the Steelers draft process because it continues to happen to them all the daggone time. But when you check this out, Antonio Brown got cut loose by Mike Tomlin. Didn't even last a training camp with the Raiders. Was on his best behavior for half a season in Tampa, won a Super Bowl. Then he got cut loose, leaving mid-game after that, right? It didn't end well, right? Chase Claypool never worked out with the Steelers. Guess what? It didn't work out with the Bears immediately. They regretted the trade after 2 weeks, right? Didn't work out. Juju, even though he won a championship, he was not as good as he was with the Steelers. So when you look at typical Steelers wide receivers that fell through with the Steelers, the same script, they never did good after. Now, when you look at it from a football perspective, you look at the division, you see that the Eagles are still stacked, pretty much a super team, I would call them. The Commanders got better this offseason. Even though Deebo Samuel, to me, is much older, much out of his prime, he's still a guy that's dangerous with the ball in his hands. They got better. So from a football perspective, you add a guy like Pickens to keep up talent-wise with the rest of your counterparts in your division. And I think what a lot of people are not realizing here, and this is why I think the NFC East is wide open, believe it or not, is not only is the Commanders, to me, have the best quarterback in this division, and that's no shot at Jalen Hurts, who just won a championship. I mean, he took the most stacked team of all time to a championship, but he's still clutch. He's still him, right? Jaden Daniels, he brought that team to the NFC Championship with a team that didn't have a lot of weaponry, a very economizing team. I think he's the best quarterback, but you bring it to Dak. Dak is 33-8 in this division. So he owns the NFC East. So that's why I think a lot of people are underestimating this division. And we all know the streak, who won back-to-back. Who was the last to do it? The Eagles in 2004. So when you make that move for Pickens from a football perspective, if he can stay on the field, you have a nice duo with him and CD Lamb and Dak Prescott. Yes, he doesn't show up in January. I'm not going to call him Mr. January, but he's still a good regular season quarterback who owns the NFC East. I think they need to be contenders. I think they need to be called as contenders.
I like that. I like that, Leel. That was a great take, man. I mean, you had some things that I did. Look, Jaden Daniels is a very, very good young player, rookie of the year, did great things for Washington. But to your point, Dak Prescott has owned all those teams in the NFC East. When you look at Dallas, even over the last 3 years when they played the Eagles, they've beaten the Eagles routinely. So they're not afraid of the Eagles. They play the Eagles well. They played the Eagles well last year, didn't have Dak. What I like about the trade is it makes the offense more dynamic. You cannot now double and triple team CeeDee Lamb and design your defense to stop CeeDee Lamb because George Pickens is a dog. And if you're matching up George Pickens with any cornerback in the league one-on-one, he's going to eat. He's going to eat. He's going to make that happen, and that's going to be a problem. So I love that. Throw in Jake Ferguson, the tight end, who's a very good young tight end. But the one thing that a lot of people are underestimating is Dallas's draft this year. Tyler Booker is a stud. The guard they got from Alabama, that's a stud. Guyton that's put on weight. I think him and BB are going to come back this year. I think Dallas is going to run the football more, and that he's at his greatest doing the play action. I just think Dallas has upgraded across the board. Defensively, they got people, and they drafted very well on the defensive side of the ball. The pass rusher from Boston College, the big tackle from USC. So they've upgraded the entire roster. And so I love what they've done. This Pickens and Lamb combination, in my estimation, will be the best duo in football. A lot of people talk about his off the field. I didn't see a lot of off the field at the Steelers. They said he came late for a team meeting. We did see some emotion, but to a man, they said he was great in the locker room. So we're going to see. But I love what Dallas has done this year. I think Dallas will be a contender in the NFC, and they have a very good momentum to really take a giant step. Remember one thing, too. They get a third-place schedule, Leel. That's the other thing. They get a third-place schedule, which will allow them to win some football games. Ray Blackwell, Pickens won't stay on the field because he's a clown. Dak has always been overrated. There's a new sheriff in town, and his name is JD5. Then you can tell that's a Commanders fan. You can tell. And look, he's a good football player. Jaden Daniels is a good football player. I don't know if the team around him, they made it to the NFC Championship last year. I don't know if the team around them will stay at that level or if they'll take a step back. What are your thoughts, Leel?
Yeah, look, I'm a big Jaden Daniels fan. Literally, he's one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. I just like his skill set, his talent, being able to read the field, the short intermediate passes, along with the deep passes, along with the mobility. There's not a lot of flaws in his game. So I think when you have a quarterback like that, you're always going to have an opportunity to compete. And I think that's why I'm favoring the Commanders right now, to be right back in the thick of things in this division and in big picture because of a guy like Jaden Daniels, and because last year was probably the worst roster he's ever going to have in the future, until he probably get a big contract extension in the future. And then maybe, you start losing some guys, but he's not going to have a worse roster than last year, in the foreseeable future. So I think they're going to be right there. And I think the Cowboys are going to be a team to look out for as well. And the Eagles are not going to have it as easy. The Eagles, even though the Commanders won a game in the regular season and they split in the regular season and they met in the NFC Championship game, the Eagles were clearly the better football team from top to bottom. Now the Commanders have gotten stronger with their additions, so they can match up better. Anything is better than last year for the Commanders as far as roster-wise, and I think they're, with the experience they got, knowing how to play the Eagles this time around, they're going to be right back, and they're going to have a say in who wins that division.
It's going to be a tough division. They're going to fight for it. I think you may get 3 teams in the playoffs from the NFC East next year. Matter of fact, I'm pretty certain you probably will get 3 teams from the NFC East. I like the Cowboys first. I just think with Dak Prescott back, look, when you take away last year, and we're talking regular season, of course, and I know there are things in the playoffs that lack to be desired. But if you take away last year, Dallas the second win in this team under Dak Prescott in the NFL. So I think Dallas is ready for a huge bounce back. I want to stay with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, Leel. One of your favorite coaches. I know you love it when we talk about Mike Tomlin. So I want to get your comments on this topic. Mike Tomlin, the Steelers, they're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. It's like, you went through rookie mini camp. You've went through now the first OTAs, waiting for the second OTAs to come up. So you're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. The question I have for you, is Mike Tomlin betting his NFL career on Aaron Rodgers? Because I'll say this, Leel, he's lived off of the fact that he's never had a losing season, right? He's lived off of that fact that all my Steeler fans, please chime in, because I want to hear from you. Don't be bashful now. He's lived off the fact that he's never had a losing season. If he starts Mason Rudolph, he's going to have a losing season. I believe if he starts Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have a losing season. But if they have a losing season, I know they gave him a brief extension, but NFL teams extend you to fire you, right? So what are your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers dilemma, not drafting a Shedeur Sanders, not going out in free agency getting a quarterback, but saying we're going to wait for Aaron Rodgers? What are your thoughts about Tomlin hitching his whole entire season this year on Aaron Rodgers?
It's a joke. It's Comedy Central. And I've been coming at the Steelers for years. I've been the only one that has woken up. I realize that when you are dealing with societal norms, you're going to have to be the one that steps out and I guess be on the island by yourself and allow everybody to come on your ship. Because I've been saying that Mike Tomlin has done nothing other than pointless regular season winning streaks. I've always been the firm believer that you are judged by winning championships. Okay, that's how I've been raised to look at sports. You got to win a championship, right? If you're not winning a championship or haven't done so, or you haven't even won a playoff game in the last 6-7 years, your job should be expendable. I don't care who you are. Okay, you could be Mr. Madden himself. I don't care. You got to go. And Tomlin has been able to use a regular season streak to advance his career, and it helps that he's in a situation where they don't prioritize adaptability, they prioritize stability, which is a big difference. That's why you look at their history as far as firing coaches or how many coaches have been on this team. It's been 3 in the last 50 years. So now that tells you all you need to know, that you have an owner in Art Rooney who is not a guy who's willing to adapt to change. He's willing to roll with stability. That's what he prioritizes. Now, when you look at this Aaron Rodgers situation here, it's a joke. It's like the equivalent of me DMing Rihanna and waiting for her text back. Okay, it's Rihanna. You think she's gonna text me back? Okay, this is a joke. All right, the throw your eggs in this basket of Aaron Rodgers acting like he's still Dan Marino or something like that, or Prime Rodgers rather, is laughable. Clearly, the guy doesn't have much left in the tank. It was evident the last couple of years, but that's how the Steelers operate. They operate in 1999. So even though Rodgers looks a little bit washed at the average eye to the Steelers, they still see that champion, that MVP, that Super Bowl winner, that back-to-back MVP rather, and that's just not reality. So I think when you go back to that report about the Bears trying to trade for Mike Tomlin, that's always going to be a deal that I think Mike Tomlin individually is going to regret. And I think that the Steelers are going to regret not accepting that first rounder for Mike Tomlin, because it's time for change. Maybe Mike Tomlin is still a good coach in the NFL. Maybe he's still a top 10 coach. I don't believe so. But listen, Give him a quarterback, give him a franchise quarterback. We'll see. Okay, but he's not going to get that here because what they're going to do is flirt around the lines of mediocrity, which is going to put them out of position to get a franchise quarterback. And now you have to depend on a guy that's playing games right now to save your career and to save your football team. You're going to do the same thing every year. So to me, they need to move on from Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin should want to move on from the Steelers as well. It's a double-edged sword.
It doesn't, Leel, honestly, what I've known of Mike Tomlin all of these years, and we talk about 17, 18 years at the Steelers, this move, and I like Ray Blackwell's comments, Mike Tomlin downfall will be him not drafting Shedeur Sanders. I like that, Ray. It doesn't seem to me that this waiting on Aaron Rodgers fits his personality, Leel. That from what I've seen over the years for Tomlin, he's not. You remember, he says his famous quote is,
"He doesn't want
volunteers. We don't want hostages, right? So it doesn't resonate to me as a Mike Tomlin thing. What do I mean by that? I mean Amir Khan may be doing more of this. He's a GM, having the team wait because it's his decision who he signs, than more of a Tomlin, because it doesn't seem like a Tomlin thing to me. I'm shocked that he is letting Rodgers hold the entire organization hostage like this. I'm extremely shocked. As a matter of fact, I lost a lot of respect for Tomlin as a head coach by this move, because no head coach should do that. You need them in OTA. You have to install a completely new offense, right? At the Steelers, OTAs are coming up. That's why you start. And now you're getting into second OTAs, and then you head towards training camp. So you think Rodgers is going to come day one of training camp and get a new install? This is blasphemy. This is terrible. So I do think that he's betting on that. And I do think if he falls flat on his face and they don't win this year with an Aaron Rodgers or without an Aaron Rodgers, I think you may see the downfall, as Ray Blackwell said, of Mike Tomlin. And it will be for not drafting. Remember, he said they met for 5 hours with Shedeur Sanders. And he talked about his poise. He talked about his character, his ball play, all of these glowing things about Shedeur Sanders. And then you pass on him 4 times? That's ridiculous. And so I think it's more or less Tomlin is selling his soul. And to your point, I don't think it ends well for Mike Tomlin at all this year. What are your final thoughts on that, Leel?
Yeah, I think you laid it out perfectly. He's selling his soul to Aaron Rodgers, the same mistake that the Jets made. And I don't understand how you can watch a team before you make a similar mistake and you go for it after that. It doesn't make any sense, but it exposes the fact that Tomlin has his flaws as a coach. He could talk water out of a well. He gets the majority of the players to buy in. Can you dig it? Yeah, I can dig it. And then, they win a regular season game they're not supposed to win because of that speech before the game. I get it. But when it comes to the most important things to me, from a head coach, it's not all about the X's and O's. Sure, you got to command the locker room. Once you lose the locker room, it's a wrap. Right. But it's about being able to be adaptable.
Yeah.
Right. Because that helps your locker room. When you're willing to do anything it takes to win. He let Matt Canada stay past his due. The rent was due. He didn't pay the rent. He allowed him to still kick it. Okay. For a longer time than he should have. All right. It's time for the Steelers to adapt and modernize. I don't even like their offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. Okay, I don't even know what he wants to do. I call him arithmetic Smith because he just want to put numbers together. And I don't really understand what he's trying to do. Really, it exposes itself in Atlanta, right? When you have all this talent and you don't know what you're trying to do. So again, you got the collegiate game. Get you some young minds. Get you some young offensive minds. Get you some young defensive coordinators. You allow Brian Flores to walk to Minnesota and transform that defense when he was in your locker room on your staff. Again, Mike Tomlin has made a lot of mistakes in the last couple of years, and it has gotten overshadowed by a meaningless regular season streak that does not matter come January. It's irrelevant when you get to January. but somehow we make it irrelevant again when it comes to September. So again, we'll see what happens with the Steelers going forward.
No, you had some great points. You had some great points. I just think it to me, Arthur Smith, they said he was a coordinator that liked a running quarterback. You had a running quarterback. I mean, you had a quarterback. You had somebody that throw the deep ball. You can't have it both ways. And I just think Tomlin is putting his entire career on the line this year, and that's going to be a problem. I want to take a step back because I want to get back at one of Ray Blackwell's. He wanted to commend you on one of your takes. So I got to give you credit. Ray Blackwell said, great take on JD5 Real. The host is a hater. He's calling me a hater. Debo will be a Pro Bowler, and the other additions will make a major impact. Look, Debo is not a great receiver. We know that, right? We know that Samuel is not a great receiver. He's a Swiss Army knife. My only problem with Debo is that Swiss Army knife dull now and bent because he's taken a lot of hits, and it didn't look really well in San Francisco last year. So you can say and to your point, you think you're getting the Debo of 3 years ago. I need to see it from Debo because the last 2 years haven't been what I expected. So we're going to see, Ray Blackwell, what the Commanders have in Debo Smith. And we both acknowledge that JD5 is a great football player. So I want to, any last comments on that?
Real quick point too. Even though Debo was not prime Debo of a couple years ago when he got that contract, one point that we need to recognize is that Cliff Kingsbury has not had a legitimate number 2 wide receiver in his coaching career in the NFL. Whether it was head coach, whether he was the Cardinals coach, and you had D-Hop, who was the number 2. Last year, who was the number 2? So Debo is still a number 2 wide receiver, or at least a guy that you could get the ball in his hands and let him do something with it. It's going to be fascinating to see what Cliff Kingsbury is able to do with Debo, knowing that you have a potential wide receiver 2 for the first time in your NFL coaching career.
Yeah, I don't even think he's a number 2, to be honest with you. That's a good point. But I think Debo is past his prime. We're going to see. It's going to be a great case study to see if he still has it. Can he ramp it back up? Shanahan used him in a variety of ways, short bubble screens, running him out of the backfield. Physically, is Debo still up to that wear and tear on his body? I think that's the biggest question we have for Debo, and we're going to see. I want to get to our next topic, Leel. Great job, Real Leel Sports TV. This guy, you see, he knows his stuff. Big New York fan. I love it. Great having him on the show today. Shedeur Sanders. From all reports, Shedeur Sanders had a great rookie minicamp. He had a great OTAs, a ball placement. I always knew his ball placement was, out of this world, really elite. I knew that about him watching all of his games. We all saw it. But still, there are reports still out there saying that Shedeur is on the bubble for making the team. There's still people that are throwing out the draft process. My question to you is it still residual effects of the Deion Sanders impact on Shedeur? Because Shedeur, for all intents and purposes, has been a model citizen. Came in early, went and visited the high schools. From all reports, stay late, come in early, stay late. Is it still the residual effect of the Deion Sanders impact hovering over all of this, in your opinion, Leel? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it is. And look, I'm a type of individual. I know what the people want to hear, but I tell them what they need to know. And it's a big difference. And I know that people are going to want to hear me say the NFL is stupid. And to some extent, I don't think he should have fell that far down. Okay, let me make that clear. But I understand we want a pity party for Shedeur Sanders. That's what the people want to hear. But I'm going to tell them what they need to hear. And look, being humble costs you nothing. It doesn't cost you anything to be humble. Okay? And look, I understand the reports about him being a good teammate and saying all the right things and doing all the right things is legitimate. I get it. It's cool, right? You can get along with your teammates. That does not make you a leader. We just talked about Aaron Rodgers. Prime example. Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, they follow him everywhere he goes, okay? To the bathroom, too. They follow him, okay? Other teammates have defended him in the past, but when you look at Aaron Rodgers and his actions, is he really a leader? not showing up the mandatory OTAs last season? Is he really a leader? Your teammates could like you. You could be the first one to leave and the last one to leave. Okay, or the first one to get there and the last one to leave. But does that make you a leader? Being a leader is handling things when things don't go your way. When Shedeur Sanders was in the collegiate game, he threw his old line under the bus a couple of times.
There you go with that, Leel. Come on.
I'm telling you the legitimate truth. He threw his offensive line. I saw the video. It's there a couple times. Even when they was falling out of the first round, I believe Deion Sanders, he threw shade at Joe Flacco, saying Flacco's my age, even though it was, a little shade, right? Nothing to really go crazy about. Still, it was shade at Flacco's age. But I bet you would want Moses, aka Joe Flacco, to mentor your son now that they are teammates, right? That's why you always got to be humble. That's why I said being humble costs you nothing. The Sanders family are not humble people. And that's why I tell you, you got to be humble out here in the world. That's how you get your blessings, by being humble. And I think to some extent, and maybe I do coincide with a lot of people, that the NFL did try indeed to send the family a message by him falling that far. I do believe that there's some smoke there. And I think a lot of it has to do with the doing of, that family and how Deion Sanders, even at this age, because I think as a man, you need to evolve. This is not only a 1999 thing talking about sports and evolving, but as an individual, to act like you 15 or 20 years old, this rich NFL player when you're not, when you're a dad, when you're a leader, you got to evolve as a man. You got to be more humble. You got to teach your son how to be humble. I don't think you should be in your 40s and 50s acting like you're 20 years old, having all these celebrities at the game and all that. I think you just need to, me personally, I think you need to evolve as a man. And I think what happened was they got caught up in the Deion Sanders hype. And a lot of people watch a lot of Colorado games because of that. And I think they misread the draft market because they were living in that attention, gravity there. And I think they just misread the market. And I also think that the NFL did indeed try to prove a point to the family by them not being humble. And I think now, as we fast forward and I end off here, looking at the Browns, Shedeur Sanders has a golden opportunity to, for the first time, not be in his father's shadow. Okay, everything is going to be earned. He got to earn making the team, right? Because he in the battle with Tyler Gabriel. So clearly he's fighting for a job. He's going to have an opportunity to do that. And now he has a chip on his shoulder. Again, he's been the son of Deion Sanders. This might be the first time he's facing adversity. Now he has it, and it might work out for him. This might be the thing that he needed for his career. So we can sit here and pout about how the NFL did him and this conspiracy that we want to throw out there, but this actually might be the best thing for his career going forward.
Look at my guy. And I like that. That's why I threw this topic on there, because I know you were going to bring that perspective, which I totally disagree about. And let me tell you why. Clearly, Shedeur Sanders was the leader of Colorado's team. He was the born-again leader. They followed him. Even Travis Hunter followed him. He was the clear-cut leader. And whereas a lot of people think he threw his lineman under the bus, in that same interview, Leel, he pointed at himself as well and the lineman. But, we can talk about that. Let me say this about Deion Sanders. I love everything about Deion Sanders. I don't think Deion Sanders has to evolve to anything. He's a great father, right? He's great. He raised two boys. They don't get in trouble. They don't drink. They don't smoke. You don't see any off the field stuff, right? You don't see any of that. Colorado's team has the highest GPA they've ever had in Colorado's history, the football team. So evident, and his players are graduating and they're going to the NFL. I don't see anything wrong with Deion Sanders. I really don't. And especially I feel that if I had a son that was going to play football, I would drive him straight to Boulder and say, here's my son. Do what you're doing. That's me. I love everything about Deion Sanders. Shedeur, I think.
Let me ask you this question, Lee.
Go ahead, ask, please.
If I came on the mic on my show and I listed all the podcasts that I would not be going on, I'm not going on that podcast. I'm not going on After the Buzzer podcast. I'm not going to go on Leel podcast. Answer this honestly. Would you have invited me on your podcast if I came on my podcast and said I'm not going to your podcast?
Look, I know what you're saying by him saying now, I never heard Deion say that I didn't want my son playing here, there, or the other. He said he was going to be involved, but I don't know if he pointed to team. But that's a fair assessment. Now, was that a little bit over the top? I wouldn't have done that if I was in Deion Sanders' shoes.
That's why I said being humble costs you nothing.
But the humbleness of it, we didn't say that when Archie Manning did it for Eli. We didn't say anything about that.
That's because Eli was actually a better prospect than Shedeur.
No, he wasn't.
You could make that argument. He was.
Well, we won't go there, but we didn't say that. The NFL didn't say that when Eli and Archie said, no, he's not going to San Diego. Don't draft me. Don't draft him because he's not going to San Diego. Don't waste. We didn't say that about Archie now. We don't say that. We don't say that about how they're handling Arch now. All we say is that Deion needed to be humble. Well, why didn't Archie and them need to be humble? Why didn't they jump on Archie Manning them? No, Archie and them still are the godfathers of the NFL. So clearly there's a double standard when we talk about Deion Sanders and when we talk about Archie Manning, because Archie did the same thing with Eli. Nobody finds a problem. They didn't find it then. They don't find it now. But the fact that Deion tried to guide Shedeur, it's a problem. There was a lot of hate, and it still is a lot of hate towards Deion and the Sanders family. And I do agree that it was them trying to humble the Sanders family, and they did it. But I'll say this, Leel. In the end, the talent of Shedeur Sanders is going to win out. And whether that's in Cleveland or that's someplace else, that's okay. But the talent of Shedeur Sanders is going to win out. And that's above everything else. That's what's going to ultimately be who wins this whole battle about humbling Deion and humbling the family. That's what's going to win out. Thoughts?
I mean, look, sure. Like I said before, I do think part of it was the NFL trying to humble Shedeur, but not at the expense of winning. There's a difference. Caleb Williams, all these reports came out about Caleb Williams. Same thing. It's just that he didn't have a father that was out here still in the headlines and all that. We even have that. We just knew Caleb Williams. But there were reports that turned out to be true. That actually turned out to be true. A lot of people was dismissing it. Oh, these are pre-draft made-up reports about him winning ownership of the Bears, of him wanting to go somewhere else or potentially not, going to the CFL. All those came out to be true a year later after the fact, right? But guess what? That didn't matter. The NFL didn't try to humble him at the expense of winning. Why? Because he has the football intangibles to play in the modern game that people are attracted to, that teams are attracted to, right? Because I do believe that there's some skill sets that Shedeur has that can translate to the NFL. Maybe not all, but some, right? Like as far as being accurate and all that. I think, you were accurate passer, you could play in the NFL, but Caleb had the intangibles. So teams were not going to cut off their nose to spite their face because he wore fingernail painting and because he was a diva. No. He's the best player, they believe, in the draft, even though I think it's Jaden Daniels now, but that's obviously hindsight, right? We're going to draft the number one. They misread the market. They lived in their own little bubble, the Sanders family did. And had they attended some of these pre-draft workouts and combines, then maybe they could have boosted their case higher than that. They just misread their market, thought they was automatically going in the first round, and the league obviously thought otherwise because guess what? Jobs are on the line. We just said, my guy Ray just said that Mike Tomlin's job is done for because he didn't draft Shedeur Sanders, right? Guys' jobs are on the line. So guys would not risk their jobs if they didn't believe that this guy's a leader. Like if they believed he was elite, they would have drafted him. They didn't believe that.
Every draft expert, this wasn't half of them. This wasn't 3/4 of them. Every draft expert had Shedeur Sanders as a first-round draft pick. All of them, Leel. All of them. Anybody you talk to. Now, he fell. I can see, a scenario where you fall out of the first round, right? Where you fall out of the first round. But there is nothing that the Johnny Unitas Award winner as a top quarterback in the country, there's no way possible that individual should have went.
I mean, you look at the teams, and this is my last point. You look at the teams that needed quarterbacks in the NFL, right? Who were three teams that you say needed Shedeur Sanders. Let's go back and you could include the
Cleveland,
Browns in this.
Cleveland, the Raiders, the Steelers. I can make a case for the Rams with the Matthew Stafford needing a quarterback of the future. I can make a case for, if you didn't think he was a starter, for Detroit to draft him to back up the one quarterback that they have. There were a lot of teams. I'll say this before you
There's a
comment,
couple
Leel.
points with that.
Even if you didn't need a quarterback, you still, the NFL drafts talent. It's about talent. And there are plenty of times when NFL teams have drafted players at that same position, not because they needed it, but because the value was there. Go ahead.
I agree to some extent. It's about talent, right? But there's also other factors involved, as we saw with Colin Kaepernick. You see, the point that I made on my show that I'm going to bring here again is that it's similar to the Colin Kaepernick situation, just in a different way. The reason why Colin Kaepernick is not in the league or wasn't in the league the last couple of years is nothing to do with football. Obviously, we know that, right?
Yep.
But it's bigger than that. We don't want a backup quarterback in our locker room that's going to take all the headlines and make the game basically about anything other than the game. Because we all know, and this also comes back as a trickle-down effect on the way how sports media is assumed or consumed, rather. Because now you have all these reporters that ask nothing. I've seen a lot of interview questions that have nothing to do about the game itself. Nothing to do with the X's and O's and the adjustments. It's about a topic that they're going to get clicks on. So it's a trickle-down effect. So my point is, the reason why Colin Kaepernick was not on the roster was because the league felt that he was too expensive as far as distractions to be in our locker room, and that's it. So I think the same thing is with Shedeur Sanders. His father, obviously, a lot that comes with that. They felt that he was too expensive as a backup quarterback. So that's why the Rams is X'd out. That's why the Lions are X'd out. Now, when you get to the Steelers, I do agree. The Steelers should have drafted Shedeur Sanders. I even texted you that. I texted you that during the draft. But guess what? They're the Steelers. There's a reason why I always light them up on the show, because they don't adapt. So you X them out because they're going to do Steelers things. They don't evolve. So now it leaves us with the Browns. But guess what? He's on the Browns. So at the end of the day, I mean, this guy just got to go out there and play.
Let me ask you this, Leel, before we get out of here. Two things. You make a point, but let me throw a couple of names out. First of all, Colin Kaepernick led a team to the Super Bowl. Colin Kaepernick was still a starter in the league when they asked him out. He could have started for one of the 32 teams. I would say that. The second thing is, let me throw these names out at you. Tim Tebow, Johnny Manziel, right? These are players that literally was backup quarterbacks, right? They stayed in the league. They kept these players around, and they worked a issue as a backup quarterback, and they brought a lot of extra stuff to the game as well. I don't buy that the extra stuff was something, because they kept Tebow, they kept Manziel, they kept all of these players.
You're going to kick Tebow out of the league for praying? All he did was Tebow. He got on the knee and prayed.
But he was a distraction because he wasn't that good. But they kept him anyway, and he was a polarizing figure. Johnny Manziel, the same way. So I don't buy that distraction. Look, I give you this. And there were some coaches and there were some GMs that didn't want to deal with Deion Sanders. You are 100% right about that, right? But that should not affect Shedeur and the skill set that he has, because he's going to prove it all wrong. And those same GMs that passed him shouldn't have a job. You're my guest. We have 1 minute left on the show. I'm going to let you end the show because you're the guest. And guys, this has been great. We're going to do this again because this is my guy. And I know he always is going to bring it. And he and I always do this when I'm on this show and he's on mine. So I love it. So I want everybody to tune in to Real Leel's 99 podcast because it's great. It's a great, great show, and I appreciate you. So I'm going to give you the last word today on any topic that we've had today.
Yeah, I think I'll wrap up the Shedeur Sanders topic. I think, the league, a lot of it too is, how is this guy going to be without his father? His father been with him every step of the way in his football career. I think teams had legitimate questions about adversity, overcoming that, and you know that's why another reason why he fell. But now he has a situation where he has a chip on his shoulder. He has a lot to prove. He has to fight in order to make the team. So I think that could either make or break him. And if he was good, and if he is good, then he should be able to win. He should be able to beat out Tyler Gabriel. He, especially if he's not supposed to be in the league. You see, every quarterback on this team, and we just want to nitpick, you know, and have this pity party for Shedeur. But I mean, Tyler Gabriel's being criticized for his size. Okay, Kenny Pickett was criticized for his hand size coming out of the draft, still is to this day. Okay, Joe Flacco was Delaware State, a Division II school,
and he's 150 years old.
And he's 150 years old. So everybody on this team has something to prove. So if Shedeur Sanders is really that good, he's going to be in the best crowd that he needs to be in, with a bunch of people that has a lot of quarterbacks that have a lot to prove. And if he comes out on top, then it was well deserved. It wasn't handed to him.
The preseason games are going to be a must-see TV when you watch the Browns play because of the reps that they're going to get. Well, look, that hour went by quick, Leel. We're going to have you back on, man. This was great. I enjoy you. You know you, my man. You do it. You bring it live, and I love it. This has been a great, great show, and the audience is telling me it's great, so we're going to have to get you back on as soon as possible. This has been a great show. I'm your host, Lee Jones, for my man, Real Leel, on Real Leel TV, the 99 podcast. We're going to say good night. Enjoy yourself. Again, like, subscribe to the show. Tell us your friends about us. This is how we do it. We'll catch you the next time.
Yes, sir. We out.